we are highlighting a violent story out of Suzhou, where a Chinese assailant attacked a Japanese woman and her son using a knife. Both survived the attack with injuries, mostly thanks to a Chinese bystander who stepped in during the altercation, a 55-year-old woman who was a school bus attendant, no less. She had the knife turned on her and she died as a result. Really a tragic story. Following the Suzhou attack, Japan formally warned its citizens to practice vigilance in regard to similar or copycat knife attacks, while Chinese authorities seemingly went on a content censoring spree to hide the reality that is rampant anti-Japanese rhetoric on its social media platforms. A lot of history between these countries. But this sounds awfully familiar to the story of the 4 American college teachers who were attacked just a month ago while on a trip to China, Miles. So could you help peel back the curtain on these knife attacks that appear to be a trend at this point and really answer the question of, do they point to a spreading current of xenophobia inside China? And what role does the CCP play in stirring up that kind of fervor against other countries or cultures' ideas?
That's a very good question. There are violent crimes in all modern societies. China and the U.S., there are no exceptions. However, in this case, the xenophobia sponsored by the state, by the Chinese government, is responsible for incidents like this. So it's not accidental. I say the state sponsored the hate crime. That's actually exactly what it is. Because the Chinese Communist government faces legitimacy and credibility crisis in China. So the best way to get themselves out of that is to fan xenophobia, particularly among the young and the malleable. The primary target of this xenophobia is the United States. The U.S. is evil. Japan is demonic and evil. So U.S. and Japan are the primary targets of the xenophobic propaganda fanned by the Chinese government day in and day out. All those who disagree with this propaganda line in China are China bashers, anti-Chinese racists, of Cold War mentality with which to upend the CCP's ambition to remote the international order and for a global dominance, now packaged by the CCP as a global common community of shared destiny for mankind. So this incident you cited in Suzhou fit into this category. This woman, her name's Hu Youping, should be a hero.
Yeah.
She was not a bystander. She was actually an employee of this Japanese school, for the children of Japanese business community in Suzhou, where there are a lot of Japanese investments over there.
Okay.
And she worked for the school, and she was a school bus helper. So there is this crazed anti-Japanese man holding a knife, trying to kill the children, the Japanese children on the bus. And she tried to stop this man, this criminal, at the door to the bus, and then she got stabbed and died. This caused an uproar in Japan, obviously, but in China, the government tried its best to ban the news first, and then and also the arrest of the killer was greeted by many as a hero in China, while the good Chinese woman who died, Ms. Hu Youping, was depicted as a traitor. You can hear this from this really bizarre talk show, the call-in shows in China, in Suzhou in particular. Many are outraged by these reactions. Obviously, there are some good-hearted Chinese people. So they sent flowers to this woman's the side, but then it was confiscated immediately by the police. The Chinese government reaction was also even more bizarre. The foreign ministry spokesperson downplay this incident as an isolated one, but never condemn the killer and show no condolence whatsoever for Ms. Hu, the hero. She even blamed Japan for framing this case to harm the bilateral relationship. So This is nothing but a very bizarre incident as a state-sponsored xenophobia. This is also the result of the long-standing Chinese political culture directly sponsored by the humongous Chinese government propaganda machine. Particularly at the popular level, we have this thing called resisting Japan bizarre dramas. That's actually is a phrase used by a lot of Chinese to call this, called resisting Japan bizarre dramas, 抗日神剧. So many of the TV shows, movies, particularly TV shows, they're really is outrageous in any normal society. They serve two purposes. One is to belittle Japanese as a nation, as a people. In many shows in China, on Chinese TV, on prime time, by the way, Chinese forces are shown carrying out all sorts of miracles to destroy the Japanese troops during World War II, with soldiers throwing rocks, for example, to bring down Japanese military aircraft. And then there's one show that shows a lone Chinese woman using hunting balls to kill dozens of fully armed Japanese soldiers. There's one very interesting episode, which is very popular in China. It's called "Our Unit Designation Shall Never Fade." It basically depicts a Chinese battalion commander brings down a high-flying Japanese military airplane by hurling a hand grenade into the air. It's truly bizarre. And there's one show, another show is called "Kill Every Japanese Devil."
No.
I'm serious. That's the title of the TV show.
My gosh.
It has a scene that shows a Chinese man using a sewing needle to dispatch Japanese invading soldiers. There's also another drama. It's called "Fabulous Resisting Japan Hero." The protagonist is immune to Japanese bullets and swords and is able to cut a Japanese soldier with his bare hands into two parts from head to toe. So this is really bizarre. Now, that's basically belittling, but there's also a far more insidious one. That is sheer hatred, Japan hatred in Chinese state media. There's one famous phrase which was made into a mocking ringtone. The phrase goes like, I quote, "I knock out a Japanese devil's machine gunner with a single bullet from 800 li away," end of quote. Now, 1 li is a Chinese measurement, which is equivalent to about a third of a mile. So this good comrade who will actually kill a Japanese soldier from 800 li, that's about 250 miles away, with one single bullet. It got to be a magic communist bullet with the Chinese characteristics. So this sort of things that permeates the Chinese public waves on TV, in internet. There's incidents like this in Suzhou you mentioned is basically occur within this kind of environment. No wonder it's not a really isolated incident.
Yeah. So you've got that incoming, then you've also got the filtering out of or the complete banning of outside information into the country, and that has to play a critical role in how the CCP is able to shape the mind of its people. That's a really big topic. Maybe we can cover another day, but could you just briefly summarize the importance of and the idea of the Great Chinese Firewall for us?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But even with that, however, I have to point out, though,
yeah, please.
There's really a sort of a Chinese schizophrenia. The CCP's mortal enemy is the United States.
Yeah.
Yet the country, the Chinese people, including the children and relatives of many senior Chinese officials, would like to migrate to is the United States.
Right.
So another part of it is, China's the best friends forever, BFFs, are North Korea, Russia, and Iran. But no one in China wants to move to these countries. That's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And then finally, the CCP's ultra villain is Japan. Yet the top tourist destination for Chinese people is Japan.
Really?
Yeah. And the most treasured CCP position, according to public pronouncement, is Taiwan. Yet the place the CCP wants to destroy the most is also Taiwan. So this kind of schizophrenic phenomenon in China. China is a country full of irony, and I blame the CCP squarely because the country, the party controls all the access to information and all the tools that might help interpret the information in the correct way.
Right. Well, and you can see that in how they gave awards to the woman, and they started to really spread that idea, but while at the same time, on the other hand, absolutely hiding, censoring, and in a panic, trying to remove anti-Japanese rhetoric on the social media platforms that led to this kind of thing that they allowed.
The last refuge of a scoundrel is nationalism. Somebody said it in the 18th century, but I think it should apply here. From the different kind of political background. The Chinese Communist Party really has lost its really legitimacy to rule. So that's why they want to fan the xenophobia, mostly among the young people.
Legitimized by delegitimizing. Nice. Well, great. For our second topic, the CCP's third plenum, a gathering of CCP leadership to lay out proposed policy reforms, is happening this week, taking place Monday to Wednesday. You gave us a small introduction to the third plenum a few weeks ago, Miles, actually, when we detailed Xi's purging of military leaders and why the timing of that purge mattered and would shake up the CCP's administrative processes to include the third plenum. So coming full circle on it all, what should we know about the third plenum taking place this week? And does any of it realistically matter, since Xi has been making clear that the policies to pursue are his and his alone?
Well, the third plenum of the Chinese Communist Party normally is the most important one, eye-catching, I should say, under normal circumstance. This year's third plenum started yesterday, Monday, even though it was delayed. It should have taken place in the fall last year. So the basically those routine goes something like this. Every 5 years, there is a Chinese Communist Party Congress. So every Congress has about 7 plenums. So the third one is usually the most important. Normally, the third plenum would take place in the fall. That's where most important decisions are made. In most cases, it will be confirmation of the personnel appointments or dismissals from the first and second plenums. But also, most importantly, the focus of the third plenum usually is announcements of the major economic policies. That's why it's very important.
Right.
This week, Beijing is a city in besiege, heavily fortified at key choke points of entrances and exits. All known dissidents have been either rounded up or disappeared from public, held in excommunication, because the party normally is in total paranoia when this kind of a meeting is taking place. Now, I mentioned delayed. Yes, the delay of the third plenum this year has stimulated all sorts of speculations because the Chinese economy is in a tank and is just in a terrible situation. Yeah. And the party seems to have run out of ideas. This kind of plenum this week has stimulated all kinds of ideas, even fantasies. The biggest one is the wishful thinking that Xi Jinping is having trouble within the inner circle of the CCP. There's a power struggle of some sort. For China brokers in Wall Street, K Street, and various China whisperers in Washington's think tanks, it is said that there is a pushback against Xi's hardline policies, rekindling the useless and intellectually dishonest promotion of a phantom divide within the CCP of a reformers group versus a diehard group. The CCP propaganda machine and the state media, in a week before the opening of the plenum on Monday, set the red line. It was completely dashed any such fantasies and wishful thinking. Because if you read this Xinhua report a few days ago, it basically said, I know the world is speculating about this third plenum, but don't think that we're going to change our basic course of socialism, Marxism, Leninism. Yeah. And we must summarize and apply the valuable experience of comprehensively deepening reforms in a new era and into 6 principles. So this party said there are 6 principles.
Okay.
The first principle is to, I quote, uphold the overall leadership of the party, firmly safeguard the authority and centralized and unified leadership of the party central committee, give full play to the core role of the party in overseeing the overall situation and coordinating all parties, and integrate the party's leadership into all aspects of reform throughout the entire process to ensure that reform always move in the correct political direction. End of quote.
Wait, did they need any other points? That's
No,
it. That's done. They just need the one. Really,
the most important economic policy has to be done by a centralized authority, Xi Jinping himself. The party commands the economy. So that's basically the recipe for disaster. Now, this is not really new. A few months ago, in May, Xi Jinping actually said the following, and I believe we quoted him at the time in one of the previous episodes. No matter how the reform is changed, we must adhere to the party's overall leadership, adhere to Marxism, adhere to the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics, adhere to the people's democratic dictatorship, etc., etc. The fundamentals must not be shaken. End of quote. This is from Xi Jinping. So any fantasy about any positive result that will solve China's inherent economic structural problem is just that. They're just fantasy. So that's why I think we should not really succumb to the hype of the third plenum.
So our final topic today actually surrounds a crucial item in everyone's kitchen. It's cooking oil. This is pretty wild. BBC reported that tankers used for transporting fuel were found to be carrying food products like cooking oil and syrup and were not decontaminated correctly in between transportations. They went on to say that transporting cooking oil in contaminated fuel trucks was said to have been so widespread it was considered a, quote, open secret in the industry, according to one driver, speaking to Beijing News. Wow. How does something like this happen, Miles? And what has been the public's reaction? And this affects everyone.
Everybody loves Chinese food.
I do as well.
Do you know the mushu pork, the Peking duck you are eating at a dinner table?
Do I want to know? Do I want to know?
It's very likely is contaminated with chemical ingredients, some kind of viruses, some kind of bacteria. Yeah. Because the Chinese safety standard, particularly food safety standard, is just abysmal. Here is another example. So what happened is there is a brave reporter. He followed this idea of this. He followed this company, which is a state-owned company, by the way, that transport routinely a massive amount of kerosene oil, right? They use to light, the lights in some countryside. They use all for other industrial use. Highly, highly toxic. And then he followed these tanker trucks to the destination. So this tanker trucks, their fuel cargo, and then immediately drive to another place and loaded with cooking oil. And sometimes soy sauce.
Oh, man.
And this has been documented, and this guy basically published his reports, and it caused the immediate uproar in China. You might like the Chinese Communist Party, but you don't like the Chinese Communist Party give you poison in your food. So that's why. But immediately this guy disappeared from public.
I was going to say,
and his reports were taken down, but the damage is already done. So this is the problem. I think there is a really lack of government due diligence and inspection and regulation on this kind of things that affects millions of Chinese people's lives. The inspections were done very randomly. In most cases, those tanker trucks should never be allowed to carry industrial chemicals as well as food products. And I think it's banned in the United States. Totally different kind of purposes. And the materials used to make those tankers are also different. I believe if you are carrying the food products, soy sauce or some other cooking oil, you're supposed to use stainless steel to make it very, very sort of clean, and you have to also clean it. And here's the thing. I mean, in some underdeveloped countries, tanker trucks were allowed to do this kind of things, but you have to really thoroughly clean, thoroughly decontaminate the tanks used for one purpose before you use to carry another kind of product.
Yeah.
In this case, this reporter discovered there has never been any kind of cleanup. And he also interviewed some of the truck drivers with many, many years of experience, and who told him, hey, listen, not only they didn't clean it, and once they did clean it, it's so sort of noxious. You cannot even go in without being knocked out because the fumes were so terrible. The residues of the chemicals, toxic chemicals, were so thick, and it's unbelievable. They use this to transport cooking oil and soy sauce. So this is a problem. But then the news control is so thorough. Other than the underground discussions, you don't see any kind of a state-sponsored media to report on this.
Well, and there's history here as well. The BBC cited in their report a 2008 milk scandal where 300,000 children got sick and 6 of them died after drinking powdered milk contaminated with high levels of industrial chemicals. So that kind of negligence has historical precedent and likely points to the unspoken policy of the CCP to use dangerous economic shortcuts at the expense of its own citizens.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the most coveted items in China is a powdered milk.
Mm-hmm.
Because they completely discredit state-owned enterprise in China that make milk. No mother wants to buy that. So that's why New Zealand, countries like New Zealand, Australia, which make a lot of powdered milk, is make a lot of money in the last several decades. If you're a mother, you visit places like Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, or New Zealand, the first thing you want to really buy in bulk is powdered milk. That's safe. You also notice that if you recall, Phil, many years ago, there is a contaminated Chinese-made dog food in the United States. Many dogs got sick, even died.
No, I didn't know
that. Imported the Chinese dog food. So, dog owners, America, watch out.
欢迎来到六度解析新闻背后的多维思考，带你洞悉头条背后的世界。在今日华尔街频道的六度解析中，我们将深入探究时事热点，为你揭开新闻背后的真相。在这个信息泛滥、真相难觅的时代，六度解析应运而生。我运用海量数据、人工智能整合以及专家观点，层层剥析每个故事，通过实时背景数据挖掘，确保你获得全面的新闻资讯。然而，我们关注的不仅仅是数据，更重要的是将它们串联起来。我将分析多方视角，揭示隐藏的脉络，为你提供单一媒体常常忽略的背景信息。无论是政治、经济，还是全球事务，我都将为你带来最具洞察力的分析。试想一下，拥有洞悉全局的能力，做出明智的决策，参与有意义的讨论，这就是六度解析带给你的价值。它不仅仅是新闻分析，更是一种赋能的工具。加入今日华尔街的六度解析，共同探索头条背后的故事。你通往深度理解的旅程，从这里开始。不要只是阅读新闻，要解码新闻，理解新闻，活出新闻。这一切尽在六度解析。立即订阅，不错过任何真知灼见。因为了解真相仅仅是个开始。